right, we have a new episode of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch to talk about, so let's get into it. I know everybody wants to talk about David Grush, but Skinwalker Ranch is where all this began. Without the investigation into Skinwalker Ranch, David Grush ultimately would not have launched his investigation that uncovered the reality of the UFO reverse engineering program. And Skinwalker Ranch may yet be our best chance at ever getting any answers into any of this, because it is still being studied today by a guy who was the chief scientist of the UAP task force. In this episode, we actually get Jay Stratton, aka Axelrod, who was also the leader of the UAP task force and has other involvement as well. So what happened when he got out there? Well, some pretty interesting stuff. So let's dig into it. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, we didn't have an episode last week. I guess they were taking their mid-season hiatus or whatever, since we're getting an extra long season this year. Or maybe they wanted to sync it with the episode of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, which also aired, I think, right afterward. And I haven't seen that yet, although that is the next thing I'm going to watch. Let me know in the comments below if you would like me to cover that on this channel. But I'm going to refer to my notes on this episode. Episode 7 of Season 4. Travis invites Jay Stratton out to the ranch. And Jay Stratton, of course, is Axelrod of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, the book written by George Knapp, Colm Kelleher, and James Latatsky. And, he is referred to as Axelrod in that book. In that book, we find out that he had a very serious hitchhiker effect from the ranch that plagued him and his family and even people in their general orbit for years afterward. They had a wolfman, a skinwalker, a werewolf that was seen many times at their home. Their kids would see this thing. They'd be having breakfast and there'd be a werewolf in their backyard. I know it's pretty crazy, but so is all of this. And that seems to be the reality of what they were facing. So I'm really intrigued by Jay Stratton. I think he's a really interesting character in all of this. And so he goes out there and he's talking about sightings he's had with the guys. They take him to the command room and they all have a briefing, and he's telling them about sightings. And he has one interesting sighting where he and multiple people were seeing a UFO, and they were all seeing different things. One guy was seeing a square, one guy was seeing a triangle. They were all seeing different things. So that is really interesting. It reminds me of a UFO Skywatch I went to not long ago, where we were all looking at the sky. Some people were seeing UFOs, and they were all consistently seeing the same types of maneuvers of these objects, but the other half of us weren't seeing anything. It picked some people to see, to observe it, and others not to. A few months later, I had my own sighting, my Jesus UFO ayahuasca incident. And I really need to make a dedicated video just describing that whole thing. And I was looking right at the UFO and could see it, and my wife couldn't. And in this case, he's talking about they were all seeing it, but they were seeing different things. And I find that very intriguing. He doesn't mention the werewolf, unfortunately, but he does talk about a couple of sightings. And in one incident, he described some activity at Homestead 2. He was trying to get to it with some others because there was some funky activity going on there. And there was a force field or something preventing them from getting closer. And he sees a dark figure at the homestead kind of looming. And it's on the second story. But there is no floor to the second story. So it would have been like floating in air or something. As we are reminded later, Travis Taylor brought his rabbi friend out a few seasons ago, and he conducted a ritual where he opened a portal, and supposedly, and the instruments recorded some activity on the second floor right of Homestead 2, right where Jay Stratton says he saw this being. So really interesting, really interesting. Travis tells Jay that he's going to use him for an experiment, but he doesn't tell him what that consists of until afterwards. They go to Homestead 2. We actually get a reenactment of Jay's story involving Homestead 2. And, it's one of the few times that Skinwalker, the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch show has ever used a reenactment. And so that was interesting. As they're driving, they have rigged sensors to the vehicle. And so they go about, they give him the tour, and nothing too exciting happens that were shown at the time. And Jay goes home. No werewolves pop out or anything, unfortunately. That would have been cool. But the next day, they do the same drive without Jay, but with the sensors in place on their car. As a control to see how the ranch reacted differently to Jay Stratton, aka Axelrod, than it did for them, and it did. It acted differently. But first, we cut away to the the B plot, where they are investigating the burned post. They found an animal carcass next to a weird post that had been burned with this weird scoop mark. Nothing else around it had been burned. They bring a Native American out there who was actually experienced in fire investigations. And he studies this weird post, and he says it wasn't lightning, and the heat at which this would have had to have been to have created this weird burn would have burned everything in the surrounding area. There would have been other signs of this fire. It was a weirdly contained fire or heat. And when they ask him what his theory is, he says, well, I'm not really going to go into any details, but it has something to do with the name of this place. That's because Native Americans don't like to say the word Skinwalker. They think it invokes the Skinwalker, and heck, it might. Maybe we should all stop saying the word Skinwalker. Skin bleeper. I don't know. But they have been interacting with this phenomenon for a lot longer than we have. Maybe they know a thing or two, right? We would probably be wise to listen to these guys. On the other hand, if we can't talk about it or, study it, then how are we going to get any answers? So, anyway, so that was really interesting. So we cut back to the Jay Stratton story, and they tell Jay Stratton about the experiment they did, and then they give him the results. And that was really intriguing. There are data points that appear to be missing on Jay Stratton's drive. They have the sensors rigged up to the vehicle, and are able to plot on the GPS their route. Well, they have the control route, everything appeared normal, but on Jay Stratton's route, there were several sensor data points that were missing. In fact, a good number of them, especially as they approached the drill site in Homestead 2. And so there's a reason for that, and that's because all the data points are underground. All the missing data points are underground, and this big sharp slope that goes down to 1,000 feet deep as they approach Homestead 2, right where he had his incident. So what does that mean? Because we've seen the weird GPS readings before where they've gone underground as well. And, there was no real answer for how or why that was done, or what the significance of that was. But now we have Jay Stratton as the experiment. And it did not do that when Travis and Eric were driving around by themselves. It only did that when Jay Stratton was with them. So it seems to be interacting with him. It seems to have remembered him. Maybe there are some telltale signatures of the hitchhiker, possibly. That it can sense, or it can interact with his consciousness and just recognize him and say, hey, this is our guy. We're going to act funky around him. I don't know. I don't know, guys, but it was really intriguing that they were able to do this experiment with I don't know if you would call Jay Stratton a high level experiencer. I don't know if he's been to other dimensions and things, but he has been haunted by a werewolf. I mean, that's not, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be haunted by a werewolf, but that is some pretty serious experience. That is some pretty serious experience. So Travis says, what could your presence do to the GPS sensor to make it go haywire? Is the ranch entangled with you? And Jay Stratton's response was simply to say, right. So, yeah, a very intriguing experiment with some intriguing results. What does it mean? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Meanwhile, Dragon and Caleb embark on the last segment of the evening of this episode. They go to check the cameras, the game cameras that they put out after the previous episodes, where there has been some activity in the south field. Thomas Winterton saw a weird purple light, went out to investigate it. A UFO kind of followed him in the sky. It was interesting. They thought, hey, there's activity in the south field. Let's put some eyes on it. They put these game cameras out there. Dragon and Caleb are checking on the results of these motion-activated cameras, and they're trying to see what tripped the motion sensor. And in one frame of this footage, there is an object on the ground. It's partly spherical, seemingly metallic, seems to be some sort of landed UFO of some sort. So, but it only appears in one frame. So they take this back to Eric and Travis and let them look at it. And someone says it looks similar to the model that Travis made of a previous UFO they saw, where he, is this kind of round object, and he made this model of it that had two hemispheres with a line in the middle and holes on both sides. And as you're looking at this object that's on the ground now, it's a spherical, metallic object seemingly, although there may be part of it that's not spherical. And there seems to be a hole or a dark spot on one end, as if we're facing the same object, but just from a different angle. So could that be the same object or a similar object? Great question. So, and as somebody says, could this object have caused the burned post? All possible, right, guys? Maybe it's a Skinwalker driving a UFO. Maybe the Skinwalker is a UFO. Maybe the UFO is a Skinwalker. I don't know, guys. That's why Skinwalker Ranch is so cool. It is the real-life Twilight Zone where anything can happen. Often spooky things, unfortunately, but it is very intriguing nonetheless. So that's it for this episode. Next time, they're going to do a little digging, and they have some new equipment that may allow them to peer into the mesa. We'll see. So let me know your thoughts. Have you seen the episode? What did you think? If you've enjoyed this episode, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. That'd be super awesome. Smash the subscribe button, smash the like button, smash the subscribe and the bell to be notified of future videos. Check out some of my other videos. There's plenty of them. Join me on social media. Facebook and Twitter links are below in the description. I would love to see you guys there. And until next time, this is Jack with Cosmic Road signing out.